1033, Chapter 8, Section 6, which is the last section we cover in Chapter 8. This deals with what we call the vertex form of the equation for a quadratic. And it's y equals a times x minus h in parentheses squared plus k. And the square here is what makes it a quadratic. The h and the k are the vertex. If a is positive, the parabola goes up. If a is negative, the parabola goes down. This is still the same thing that we learned in the previous section, where h, which is right here, is actually a horizontal shift left to right. Remember, it's opposite in sign. K is a vertical shift, which means we go up and down. So the whole point of this section is taking a standard equation and putting it in vertex form by completing the square. So this is example 1, page 528. It says f of x equals x squared minus 4x minus 12. First thing I do is replace the f of x with y, and then I add the 12 over, because we've got to open this space up to complete the square. Remember, completing the square is taking half of the middle term, so half of negative 4 is negative 2, square it, which means I add 4. So again, completing the square, half of the middle term squared. So this would be negative 2 squared, which is plus 4. Remember, algebra says whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I'm going to add plus 4 here. So here's where the vertex form comes in. Take the square root of the first term, which is going to be x. Keep that middle sign. Take the square root of the last term. So this is x minus 2. X minus 2 squared. Then subtract the 16 over, and we're now in vertex form. We have y equals parentheses x minus 2 squared minus 16. H is my 2. K is my negative 16. And so, based on what we know, we're going to add 2 to our x's in our ordered pairs, subtract 16. So if I come over here, if I add 2 to 0, 0, I get 2, and subtract 16, I get 2, negative 16. Here, if I add it to negative 1, 1, I get 1, negative 15. If I add it to 1, 1, I get 3, negative 15. Here's my graph. So remember, this vertex form, y equals a times x minus h in parentheses squared plus k, is giving you h and k, which is giving you horizontal shift and your vertical shift. Here's another example. This is example 2 on page 829. It says f of x equals 3x squared plus 3x plus 1. Again, I change the f of x to y. Again, I subtract the 1 over. Now, one of the things we have to do is we have to make sure that there is a 1 in front of the x squared. So what I did was factor out a 3 here. When I factor out a 3 here, it leaves me x squared. When I factor 3 out of here, it leaves me x. See how if I were to multiply this back, I would still have 3x squared plus 3x. Take half of the middle term, which is a half, square it, we get 1/4. But I didn't just add 1/4 to this side, I added 3 times 1/4, which is 3/4. That's the reason I have to add 3/4 to the other side. That gives me y plus 1/4 with the 3 out front. Square root of this is x. Keep the middle sign, which is a plus. Square root of 1/4 is 1/2 squared. Then I can subtract the 1/4 over. Now, here's what happens here. My vertex is at negative 1/2, negative 1/4. Now, I went ahead and did the 2 ordered pairs, but it's kind of tough with a fraction. So all I'm saying is that once I get the vertex, I know this parabola goes up because a is positive. Remember, this number in front of the parentheses is a. Over here, we still had an a because it was a positive 1. We just don't write the 1. Second part to this is the vertex formula, where we can actually get the vertex of an equation, and this helps in terms of physics and chemistry, biology, things like this. See, the h for our vertex formula is negative b over 2a. If we take that number and put it into the equation we're looking at and solve, we get k. Here's example 4, page 532. This says f of x equals x squared minus 4x minus 12. There's a 1 in front of the x squared, so that's a. Negative 4 is b, negative 12 is c. If I want h, which is x, I got negative b over 2a. Negative 4, I get 2. If I want k, I have to take this 2 that I figured out with negative b over 2a and plug it back into this equation. So I get 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 12, which is what I have here. I do the math, I get minus 16. This is my h, this is my k. There's my a. So all I have to do is follow the formula. A is 1, h is 2, k is negative 16. There's my vertex form of my equation. Like I said, this becomes very important in terms of physics problems. So see, look at this. This says a rock is thrown upward from the ground. Its height in feet above ground after t seconds is given by the function f of t equals negative 16t squared plus 20t. See how negative 16 is my a, 20 is my b. It says find the maximum height of the rock and the number of seconds it took the rock to reach the maximum height. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do our negative b over 2a, and then we're going to plug it back into the equation and get our k, which is our maximum height. Remember, this right here is t, which is time. So if we take negative b, we plug 20 in there. We plug 16 in here for a, which is a negative. We get 5 over 8. If we take 5 over 8 and plug it back into the equation, and remember the equation was negative 16t squared plus 20t, so that's where they're getting this from. We do the math, we get 25 fourths. Now, if I give you a problem like this on the test, I'm not going to give you any fractions. I'll give you whole numbers. But this is a good example problem to see what's happening. So see, what we did was we used this a, which is negative 16, this b, which is 20. We put it in negative b over 2a, did the math, we got 5/8. Then what we did was, once we got this h, we put that 5/8 back into this formula because that's t. And then we just did the math and got 25 fourths.